Jenna checked her watch again. 11:58 p.m. Her bus was late. Where was it? She had been waiting for what felt like an eternity, the cold night air seeping through her jacket. She glanced around, hoping to see the familiar headlights cutting through the fog, but there was nothing. Just the oppressive silence and the thick, swirling mist that seemed to swallow everything.
The streetlights hummed, casting long, eerie shadows that danced with the swirling fog. The mist seemed almost alive, moving and shifting in the dim light. It was the kind of night that made you feel like you were in a different world, a place where anything could happen. The night was unusually quiet. Not a single car passed by, and the usual city sounds were muffled by the dense fog. It was as if the world had paused, holding its breath. Just as Jenna was about to give up and call a cab, she heard it. A faint noise, almost imperceptible at first, but growing louder. Her heart raced as she strained to see through the fog. A low rumble echoed from the end of the street. It was a sound she had been longing to hear, the promise of a way out of the cold and the fog. Two bright lights pierced through the thick fog. They seemed to float, disembodied, growing larger and brighter as they approached. A bus, finally. Relief washed over her as it lumbered closer. She could feel the tension in her shoulders ease. The promise of warmth and movement, a welcome relief. This was definitely not her usual bus. It looked old and worn, its paint chipped and faded. There was something almost eerie about it, but Jenna was too cold and tired to care. Jenna stepped up as the bus screeched to a stop in front of her. The sound was jarring in the quiet night, but it was a welcome noise. The doors hissed open, revealing a dimly lit interior. The light was weak and flickering, casting long shadows inside the bus. Jenna hesitated for a moment, but the cold wind pushed her forward. She stepped inside, the warmth enveloping her like a blanket. The bus driver gave her a nod, and she found a seat near the back, grateful to finally be on her way. The bus was ancient. The seats were ripped and worn, covered in a faded floral fabric.
Downtown?
At the wheel sat the bus driver, an old man with a face like wrinkled parchment paper. His eyes were hidden in the shadows of a worn cap. He didn't acknowledge Jenna as she stepped on.
Hello? Downtown, please?
Silence. The driver didn't react. Jenna hesitated, unsure of what to do. The night was cold, and the air felt heavy with an unspoken tension. She glanced around, her eyes darting from shadow to shadow, as if expecting something to emerge from the darkness. The bus lurched forward with a groan, starting its journey into the night. The engine's growl echoed through the empty streets, a lonely sound that seemed to amplify the isolation Jenna felt. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. Jenna stumbled, grabbing the cold metallic handrail to steady herself. The bus's sudden movement had caught her off guard, and she could feel the chill of the metal seeping into her skin. She looked around, trying to find a safe place to sit. The bus was mostly empty, except for a lone figure seated near the back. The dim lighting cast eerie shadows, making the interior feel even more desolate. Jenna's eyes were drawn to the solitary passenger, a sense of unease creeping over her. An old woman, her face hidden behind a thick yellowed book. The pages seemed ancient, and the woman's eyes never left the text. Jenna wondered what kind of stories could hold such a grip on someone at this hour. Jenna chose a seat a few rows behind the old woman, clutching her bag to her chest. She felt a strange mix of curiosity and apprehension. The old woman's presence was both comforting and unsettling, a silent reminder that she was not entirely alone. The silence on the bus was unnerving, broken only by the rattling of the engine. Each bump in the road sent a shiver down Jenna's spine. She tried to focus on the rhythm of the engine, using it as a distraction from her growing anxiety. Jenna watched as the familiar streets of her town disappeared, replaced by dark, deserted roads. The landscape outside the window became a blur of shadows and faint outlines. She felt a pang of homesickness, longing for the safety and warmth of her home. The journey ahead seemed endless, and Jenna couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her from the darkness. The bus rattled and swayed, its headlights cutting through the thick fog. The world outside the windows was a blurry gray canvas. Trees appeared as grotesque, shadowy figures.
Shivers.
Jenna felt a shiver crawl up her spine. She looked around the bus again, but the old woman was gone. As the bus plunged deeper into the woods, the fog outside seemed to seep into the bus itself. It swirled around Jenna's feet, cold and damp. Jenna's heart pounded in her chest. Panic started to rise in Jenna's throat. She looked towards the front of the bus, towards the driver.
Excuse me, sir, can you…
As she turned, a flash of lightning illuminated the driver's face. Jenna gasped. His eyes were completely black.
Gasp, oh my God.
Terror shot through her veins. She scrambled back in her seat, her eyes frantically searching for an escape. The fog outside the bus swirled faster. A dark, shadowy figure began to take shape.
No, 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 this can't be happening.
Jenna pressed herself against the back of her seat, her breath caught in her throat. She could feel her heart pounding, each beat echoing in her ears like a drum. The dim lights inside the bus flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced around her. She clutched her bag tightly, her knuckles turning white. The figure outside was getting closer, its form becoming clearer. It moved with an unnatural grace, almost gliding across the ground. Jenna's eyes widened in terror as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. The figure seemed to be made of shadows, its edges blurring into the darkness around it. It was tall and skeletal, its limbs grotesquely elongated. The creature's fingers were like claws, reaching out as if to grab her. Jenna's mind raced, trying to find a way to escape, but the bus was moving too fast and the doors were locked. The bus lurched to a stop, throwing Jenna forward. She hit the seat in front of her, pain shooting through her body. She looked around, hoping someone else had noticed the figure, but the other passengers seemed oblivious, lost in their own worlds.
Screams. Jenna's scream pierced the silence, but no one reacted. It was as if she was invisible, her terror unnoticed by those around her.
The shadowy figure outside moved closer to the window. Jenna could see its eyes now, glowing with a malevolent light. It pressed its face against the glass, and she could feel its cold breath fogging up the window. The driver turned, his black eyes fixed on Jenna. There was something deeply unsettling about his gaze, as if he could see into her very soul. He smiled, a chilling grin that sent shivers down her spine.
Looks like you've reached your final destination. The words echoed in Jenna's mind, filling her with a sense of dread.
The bus door hissed open, releasing a wave of ice-cold air. Jenna felt the chills seep into her bones, making her shiver uncontrollably. She knew she had to get off the bus, but her legs felt like lead. The bus, with Jenna imprisoned within, started moving again and disappeared into the black void of the forest. The darkness swallowed them whole, leaving no trace of their passage. Jenna's fate was now intertwined with the shadows, her future uncertain and filled with fear.